Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take source material you provide, and we really unpack the key insights to help you get informed quickly and thoroughly.
And today we're diving into a concept that honestly might just flip your thinking. It's this idea of prayer as strategy.
Yeah, and this deep dive is specifically drawing from excerpts provided from Chris Velasquez's work.
Right. And our mission really is to get to grips with what it means to see prayer not just as, something on the side or a last resort.
But as the absolute foundational mission-critical strategy.
Yeah.
For real transformation, real success in basically every part of life.
Exactly. Personal, professional, community, all of it.
Because normally, when you hear strategy, you think, well, boardrooms, right? Flip charts, maybe SWOT analyses all over a whiteboard.
KPIs, Power BI pivots, SMART goals.
Yeah.
The whole toolkit.
And the sources, they do acknowledge that kind of planning has value. There's that Proverbs 21.5, the plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance. So planning isn't bad.
Absolutely not. Human planning, intelligence, hard work, they are needed. But the core idea here, the sort of paradigm shift in the source material is, what if prayer isn't just a tool?
Or something you, add on at the end.
What if prayer is the foundational strategy? What if prayer itself is the strategy?
And the critique they offer of how we usually do things, it really hits home. They say we often treat prayer like a last resort safety net.
Yeah, when everything else fails. Or maybe like a spiritual rubber stamp on a plan we've already decided on.
Or just, a blessing sprinkle on top of a meal we already cooked after the real work, the planning, is done.
Exactly. And the argument is doing it that way leaves this huge void. We miss out on divine wisdom, God's perspective.
And those unexpected breakthroughs, right? The ones that maybe only come when you invite that higher intelligence in from the absolute start.
Precisely. So the proposed shift is pretty profound. Make prayer the strategic North Star. It's the first meeting, not our fallback.
That feels so relevant right now, doesn't it? I mean, we're all trying to navigate this world that feels increasingly volatile, unpredictable.
Professionally, personally,
Yeah.
Constant disruption seems like the new normal.
Yeah. And relying only on human analysis, even brilliant analysis, just feels, vulnerable. You miss things. Blind spots, pitfalls you just can't anticipate.
Which is why the source's key claim is so interesting. They argue prayer is the divine blueprint. And through it, God reveals not just what to do,
The action plan.
but also how to become the kind of person who can actually carry out that plan effectively. That's not just changing methods. It's like changing your whole operating system.
Okay, so where does this idea come from, biblically speaking?
Yeah.
The source is grounded firmly in the Bible, showing God as the ultimate strategist.
And prayer is our connection to that strategy. They call it the blueprint, the operating system.
Yeah.
Even the air war before the ground assault.
Wow.
You see it right from the beginning. Creation. It wasn't improvised. It was intentional, an orchestration, a strategic activation, they call it.
Like, let there be light.
Yeah.
That wasn't just a wish. It was a strategic command.
Right. And notice the order in Genesis 1, order before occupancy. He prepared the space strategically before filling it.
And redemption. The plan for salvation.
His sources are clear, not a reaction to the fall. They frame it as a redemptive strategy conceived in eternity past, preordained before the foundation of the world, like Revelation says.
It fits with Isaiah 46.10. God seeing the end from the beginning. It was his strategy all along.
Then look at Jesus. He consistently modeled this strategic prayer. Remember him praying all night before choosing the 12 apostles?
Luke 6, yeah. And Gethsemane, before the cross. That agonizing prayer.
Matthew 26. And he was constantly withdrawing to pray. John 8.28 is key. He said he only did what he saw the Father doing. That implies this continuous prayerful connection and alignment.
And this isn't just New Testament. The Old Testament pattern is there too. Moses, his leadership starts with the burning bush, right?
Yeah.
Not a strategy meeting.
Exactly. Exodus 3, a divine encounter. And the tabernacle plans. God gave them to him. Exodus 25.4 says the design was revealed, not invented by Moses.
Or David. Such a capable leader, warrior.
But he didn't just rely on his own skill. He repeatedly inquired of the Lord before battles. 1 Samuel 23:30.
The sources say, for him, prayer was procedural, part of the process, not just perfunctory, not just a quick formality.
Right. He even got the temple plans through spiritual revelation, according to 1 Chronicles 28.
Nehemiah 2.
Yeah.
The whole burden to rebuild Jerusalem starts in prayer, and you see that divine coordination guiding him.
And Jehoshaphat. Facing that overwhelming army in 2 Chronicles 20, what does he do? Calls a fast, calls for prayer.
And the strategy that comes out is totally counterintuitive. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, revealed right there, during the prayer gathering, action flowing from revelation.
So the pattern across these figures is clear. They were strategic leaders because they prayed first. Prayer was the gateway to accessing God's strategy.
Okay, so it's more than just getting a to-do list from God. What's the deeper principle? Why does prayer transcend mere tactics, according to the sources?
Well, first, it's about divine alignment. Prayer isn't just about getting answers. It's about aligning our hearts, our wills with God's before we act.
So it's becoming the kind of person who acts wisely, not just getting wise advice, like
Right.
James 1.5 asking for wisdom.
Exactly. And the sources warn, without that alignment, even successful plans can become self-serving. They point to the Tower of Babel, Genesis 11. A good plan, humanly speaking. Unified, ambitious.
But orphaned from God's actual will. Unity without submission equals rebellion. Is that the idea?
That's the argument. It reframes success completely. Then there's accessing the invisible realm.
Right, Ephesians 6.12, so our struggle isn't just flesh and blood.
So prayer taps into, as the source puts it, divine insight that analytics alone cannot reach. It's super-rational.
Meaning beyond rational, but not anti-rational or anti-intellectual.
Precisely. It works with a different, higher level of intelligence. Prayer becomes the delivery system for divine intelligence.
Okay, so not data you get from reports, but strategies downloaded in the secret place.
Yeah.
Like Daniel praying in chapters 9 and 10.
Yes. Strategy becomes a spiritual download. You receive it through prayer, confirm it with scripture, and then act in obedience.
Which leads directly to discernment, doesn't it? Being able to tell the difference.
Between good ideas and God ideas. That's crucial. Good ideas seem logical, beneficial from our view. God ideas are specifically birthed from his purpose for that situation.
And Romans 12.2 suggests this isn't automatic. It's something you cultivate. Helps you see past the surface.
Right, to see potential spiritual roots or dynamics at play.
Okay, so we've got the foundation. Prayer is the core strategy, the biblical roots, the deeper principles of alignment, insight, discernment. How do we actually do this? How does this look practically?
This is where it gets really concrete. The sources suggest first redefining the planning table.
So instead of brainstorming first,
Start every significant decision, personal, team, organizational, with silence and actual listening prayer. Discernment first.
wow, they give a specific tip, right? Like before meetings.
Yeah, a really practical one. Before a meeting or starting a project, take 30 minutes corporately or individually dedicated to prayer, but not asking, what should we do? What are you doing, Lord, and how do we join you in it?
That completely flips the script on typical planning. And it connects to building systems of dependence.
Not just systems for efficiency, though those are good, but systems that build in reliance on God. Weaving prayer into the actual structures of your business, family, ministry.
So it's not just a ritual tacked on, but demonstrates real dependence. Like maybe a Monday morning meeting starts with listening, not just status updates.
A Monday morning listening session, exactly. And then how you handle disruptions.
When things go wrong, plans fail.
Don't just panic or rush to fix it. The sources say, interpret disruptions spiritually. Ask, is this a pause from God? Is it a redirection?
So prayer turns that disruption into a potential insight, not just a crisis. They mentioned a case study.
Yeah, a small business where a supply chain failure through prayer led to a completely different, divinely guided approach.
And for personal leadership.
It means before setting your goals, you're asking God to reveal his plans for you, not just asking him to bless your plans.
So for a new job, it's not just help me succeed, but how does this role fit your kingdom purpose for me?
Precisely. And extending that to organizational culture, making prayer the genuine strategic core.
Meetings starting with intercession, creating actual space for people to share what they feel God might be saying.
Yes, literally asking, has anyone sensed what God is saying about this? Imagine that culture shift.
That's huge. They also mentioned timing and positioning.
Prayer helps align your efforts with God's timing, those kairos moments, and the right place. Discernment is key for knowing when to wait, when to move.
Like Abraham and Sarah's struggles with timing in Genesis.
Or the early church in Acts 13, praying before sending out missionaries. Prayer opened their eyes to where and when God was leading, beyond human logic.
It all comes down to prayerful problem solving then.
Before tackling the challenge, pause. Pray first. Resist that urge to jump straight into human solutions. Bring the problem to God first.
And this isn't just internal. They talk about strategic intercession.
Praying intentionally, purposefully for others in your sphere, colleagues, clients, your community.
Not just generic prayers, but specific requests, like for wisdom, favor, well-being, opportunities.
Exactly. Building spiritual capital, they call it, citing passages like Ephesians 6 or Colossians 4 about specific prayer for others and opportunities.
Building on that, there's prayer mapping. What does that involve?
Identifying key people, decision makers, even spiritual strongholds or areas of need in your sphere of influence, then praying systematically, specifically for those points.
Turning prayer into almost a strategic campaign with accountability.
Yeah, prayer partners, tracking answers, journaling, making it focused.
And all this leads to moving from revelation to action, which they call
Divine human synergy. The revelation you get isn't the end point, it's the start of a partnership.
God often uses unexpected people or methods, right? Moses, Gideon, Esther, Paul.
Absolutely. So it requires sensitivity after prayer, documenting insights, confirming them with scripture and counsel.
And then having the courage and flexibility to act, maybe in ways that are outside the standard playbook.
And the outcome isn't just task completion, it's a ripple effect. Prayer as strategy transforms you inwardly. First, deeper relationship with God, sharper discernment.
Then that ripples out.
Your influence grows, relationships deepen, kingdom impact multiplies. Like Ephesians 3.2011, God doing immeasurably more. It's transformational, not just transactional.
Which brings us to maybe the most challenging point, redefining success itself. We're so wired for metrics, aren't we? Attendance, growth, revenue.
Right, the world's scorecard. But the sources push back hard on that. True kingdom success, they argue, isn't primarily about quantity.
It's about
The spiritual ground we claim through prayer, the relational depth we cultivate, and the redemptive influence we extend.
the biblical examples support that. Jericho's walls falling through obedience and prayer, not military might.
Joshua 6, or Gideon's small army in Judges 7, winning through divine strategy. Ephesians 6 reminds us the real battles are spiritual. Success starts in the unseen.
So the implications are significant. Mission fields are spiritual territories needing spiritual authority gained through prayer.
Exactly. And the kingdom grows best through relationships, leading to multiplication. Redemptive influence is that lasting fruit Jesus talked about in John 15.
It really positions strategic prayer as potentially the next frontier of missions innovation.
Leveraging God's power, complementing our efforts, reclaiming that core identity as people connected to God through prayer.
So practically, this means shifting how we measure progress.
Yes, measuring spiritual breakthroughs changed lives, answered prayers. Prioritizing prayer and discernment before planning. Building dedicated prayer teams, watchers, and intercessors.
And celebrating those unseen victories that metrics would completely miss.
Exactly.
Now, this sounds amazing, but let's be real. The sources acknowledge obstacles, right? This isn't easy.
Absolutely not. You're stepping onto a spiritual battlefield. You'll face skepticism, burnout, distraction, even direct spiritual opposition, like Ephesians 6 warns about.
They mention Elijah under the broom tree, 1 Kings 19. Even after a huge victory, he hit despair.
It's real. But the sources offer solutions. Cultivating resilience through spiritual disciplines, stillness, listening, building community like Aaron and Hur, holding up Moses' arms.
Exodus 17, yeah. Support is crucial.
Anchoring deeply in Scripture, relying on the Spirit, and importantly, expecting opposition but facing it with faith.
John 16.33. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. So challenges become opportunities to claim territory through prayer.
That's the perspective. The journey isn't just a project, it's a sacred commission, like Deuteronomy 31 or the Great Commission in Matthew 28, an ongoing mandate fueled by prayer.
And to really bring it home, the sources offer some specific calls to action, like walk your community weekly.
Yeah, the power of presence and prayerful perception, like Ezekiel walking Jerusalem's walls in vision, discerning the atmosphere, the needs, the hopes.
And then map what God reveals during those walks and prayer times.
Journaling insights, burdens, prayers, it becomes a tangible record, a strategic tool for partnership with heaven.
Hosting prayer and strategy nights, too, combining that intercession with actual planning, drawing from the early church model in Acts.
But huge for the long term, mentor emerging intercessors, that multiplication Jesus modeled, equipping others to hear God, test it, apply it, building a legacy.
Ultimately, it's about launching your own prayer-driven mission, whatever that looks like for you, family, work, community.
Combining the listening, mapping, gathering, mentoring into action. Because legacy starts with listening, like Moses, like Samuel. Obedience flows from that listening, as James 1.22 says. Prayer mapping becomes active partnership with heaven.
Wow. This deep dive Drawing on Chris Philossis's work, it really does challenge our default ways of thinking about planning and strategy.
It's a strong case for trading our often limited human plans for a supernatural strategy, elevating prayer from an afterthought to the absolute core.
And again, it's not about passivity or abandoning effort. It's about reordering things, subordinating our best efforts to God's revelation, building from His blueprint.
Not just asking him to rubber stamp our own good ideas.
Which leaves us, and you listening, with some really significant questions to ponder, like, what good things might you be doing right now that looking through this lens might not actually be God-ordained?
Where in your life, your work, your family, might God be calling you to just pause, to pray first, to really seek His divine strategy before you rush into action?
And maybe the biggest one, how might making prayer your very first meeting, your strategic North Star, instead of your fallback plan? How might that unlock doors you never imagined?
How might it lead to breakthroughs you couldn't engineer on your own and actually start building a legacy that aligns with God's eternal purposes and truly lasts?